The Mercedes-Benz E55 AMG was the fastest sedan at the time, capable of a low 12-second quarter-mile pass right out of the box. But did you know that other Mercedes models share the same engine? We all know and love the E55, that is, the one with the 5.4-liter supercharged V8. The thing is, there are a handful of other Mercedes that came with the same engine and might be a little cheaper. Despite being just as powerful, sometimes these other AMGs simply get forgotten about under the E55 shadow. Today we're going to cover every vehicle that came with the infamous M113 compressor engine. And if you've ever browsed Marketplace for an E55, you've probably stumbled across these other models. You might have seen an S55 at a suspiciously low price. Well, why? By the end of this video, you will understand why certain models of these early 2000s Mercedes can be so cheap, often literally getting parted out, while others are steadily appreciating. Now, in case you didn't know, the M113K is a pretty darn good motor. The main thing that separates the AMG from the other Mercedes of this vintage is the engine. After all, you don't see people getting excited about a V6 E320, do you? If you clicked on this video, you probably know a thing or two about the supercharged V8 under the hood of these AMGs. But if not, here's a quick little rundown for you. What exactly makes the M113K special? Well, the compressor or supercharger is its distinguishing feature. This isn't the same thing as the roots blower on your grandpappy's Pontiac, though. It's a twin screw style, which is a lot closer to a turbo in terms of efficiency than those old school hair dryers in the past. And to keep the air cool, it uses a water-to-air intercooler. They didn't just slap a supercharger on a base model engine and call it a day. The K engine got a stouter bottom end. Overall, the basic architecture remained more or less the same. Simplicity was king. Single overhead cams with 3 valves per cylinder and no variable valve timing. The heads were also updated, of course, with a better flowing port design to make use of that extra air. The valve train was upgraded, and of course there were larger camshafts in play as well. Altogether, the M113K makes 493 crank horsepower. More expensive models got a higher horsepower rating by Mercedes, but all of them actually make the same figures. It's just Mercedes trying not to undercut higher models with lower models. What's great about this platform, though, is how tunable it is. If you put a smaller pulley on, a set of headers, and a tune, you can pick up 50 to 100 wheel horsepower depending on what setup you go with. If you want to go farther, there is no problem at all. There's a ton of aftermarket support. There's really no single weak point or common failure on these motors, unlike the NA 6.2 that replaced it, which suffers from breaking head bolts across pretty much all years. These engines are known to reliably hold over 600 horsepower and just take it all day, every day. Not only that, they've been known to go well over 200,000 miles if properly maintained, although the more power, the more likely they are to break. The only real downside that we found in our research is that the supercharger is an extra part that does need maintenance. In reality, you need a supercharger oil change every 30,000 miles and don't fail all that often. Now, the transmission on these is nothing special. It is a 5G Tronic, no, not like the cell towers, or in other words, it's a 5-speed automatic. There is nothing going on there. It does not have lightning fast shifts like a modern DCT, but it holds the power and can give you launch after launch after launch after launch after launch. Now, like the engine, the transmission, of course, can be tuned. The transmission controller can be tuned to make it feel a little bit more snappy. But again, if you're coming from a modern DCT, it's going to be night and day. All M113K equipped cars, despite having the same drivetrain, has its own vibe. We are now going to get into each one, weighing their pros and their cons, starting with the one that you already know about, the E55 AMG, 2003 to 2006, the W211 chassis. If you're only familiar with one of these M113K cars, this is the one. Why is the E55 the most well-known? Well, probably because it's the lightest, therefore it's the fastest, excluding the ultra-rare CLK DTM, which if you can afford, you're probably not watching this video. It comes in at 4,100 pounds, heavy, but remember, it has seating for 5 and a big trunk. This is a grand touring car, not a race car. Obviously, the weights do vary depending on year, trim level, who you ask, who's sitting in the car. We use the same source for all the curb weights, so before you get on your keyboard and go, actually, the E55, shut up, bro. Anyway, they give you a rough comparison across the whole lineup. For example, with a clean title, normal mileage, and no major issues, expect to pay around $15,000 for one of these. You can find a cheaper one for like 7 to 10, but generally this is a car where you want to buy a better maintained one. If you're trying to buy one at the absolute price floor, you probably missed the boat. You used to be able to get these for like 5-6 grand, but prices are going up. They are a little bit of a collector car now. With that said though, these are excellent value for the money considering what you get. At the price point, what else is capable of a low 12-second pass in stock form? And because they were the most heavily produced model of AMG car, between 03 to 06, there are still a ton to choose from. In terms of looks, I like the E55, but our writers apparently don't. It's neither offensive enough to make anyone hate it, nor bold enough to get unnecessary attention. I think it looks sick. I'm just the guy on camera. Anyway. If it's too tame for you though, put the E63 bumper on, splitters, lowering links, and a set of wheels, of course, which you can pick up from our website, threepiece.us, and you've got a really nice looking sedan. If you want a more aggressive look from the factory, check out the E's close relative, the next car on our list, the E55 AMG 04 to 06. If you're looking at the E-Class, you should obviously also consider the CLS, as it's going to achieve basically the same thing. It's basically the same car, the same chassis, just wearing a different outfit. When it was introduced in 04, Mercedes tried to push it as having a stiffer, more sporty chassis. In reality, it's pretty much identical to the E55, just with a different look and 50 or so extra pounds. They have a sleeker, more aggressive look and can run wider wheels and tires. Some people really like them, others prefer the E-Class. If you like this, you probably like stuff like the RS7 and the Volkswagen CC and they are a little bit less spacious inside. The instrument cluster and the driver's seat are a little more driver-centric, and the CLS and E-Class are the only AMGs with Airmatic. We will explain why later. There are pros and there are cons. From our research, these are trending a little bit higher than the E55, somewhere in the region of $12,000 to $18,000. This is probably because one, they kind of look like a sportier coupé spaceship type thing, and two, there are lower production numbers, so it's a little more rare. It all really comes down to your opinion of how the CLS looks. You can either make more power to compensate for the weight, or you can take some stuff out to make up for the weight, or it's 50 pounds and it's a street car and it's really never going to matter at the end of the day. Now, the S55 AMG, the 03 to 06 W220, the supersized sedan, the big boy, the S-Class, this one is towards the bottom in most categories, but practicality is not one of them. These cars have a ton of interior and trunk space, and that's about where the pros on these ones run out. Why do people not like the S55 AMG? Well, it's not specifically the AMG, it's really the entire W220 platform. The first thing is that it's the heaviest, not including the G55, obviously. It's generally considered to have a really cheap feel considering the historic price point of these cars, sharing components with mid-tier models. It's still super luxurious compared to, say, a Ram 2500, but this is a flagship Mercedes. It should be a little nicer. Also, while completely subjective, it is considered to look a bit bland. Ryder, I agree with you on this one. Frankly, a stock W220 doesn't stand out in traffic, which might be a pro to you, but the S55 still has that V8 compressor, and once you start seeing how well they are priced, you might have a change of heart, but there is a reason. You can consistently find these for between $6,000 and $12,000 American dollars. The main reason is the ABC suspension. We're going to touch on this later, but if you know, you know. Also, there are electrical gremlins that are unique to the S-Class, and they are just a pain in the butt to track down. The prices on these cars make them seem appealing, but you need to really understand what you're getting yourself into, and buying a cheaper one is not really a great choice. Now we've got the CL55 AMG, the W215. It's the coupe version of the S55. It even shares the same rear end. The CL is slightly larger and more sporty, but still weighs in at 100 to 200 pounds heavier than the E55 or CLS55. This is also an ABC car, which accounts for a lot of the weight, so you can fix that problem. It uses aluminum and plastic body panels to help offset some of those extra pounds, but it's not compensating for all of it. The advantage, of course, of the CL over the S-Class is it does not have the same electrical issues, or at least it shouldn't. It doesn't have any more than the average early 2000s luxury car, but you know, it's not a Corolla. Naturally, you're getting a little bit less utility here. It's a coupe after all. The CL55 has the lowest production of what we've looked at so far, only 2,658 of them made. You would think that this would add to the price, but they're pretty much the same price as the E55, 10 to 15,000 less for cars needing some work, more for perfect examples. If you're willing to ditch the ABC for coils, the CL55 could be a really good choice. Again, it kind of comes down to your opinion of the look, since they're all functionally the same car under the appearance. Some people think the front end doesn't match the car. If you're in this crowd, the next model might be more appealing to you. And that is, of course, the SL55, made from 03 to 08, the R230. Just like the E55 was the fastest sedan at launch, this was the fastest vert. The SL55 is the sportiest, but the least practical. It's a two-seater. It has about 1/3 of the trunk space compared to an E-Class, and despite their looks, they are still pretty heavy. While they're lighter than the S and the CL, these also do have ABC, making them heavier than the E and the CLS. If any model on this list, though, is right for a coilover conversion, it's gotta be this one. They are less practical, so it would really just make sense to have a suspension with a little bit more feedback, a little bit more driver-oriented. We do wish Mercedes had offered these with a manual. You probably could do that on the aftermarket, though. Now, at first glance, the prices are frankly outrageous, but if you look a little bit closer, it starts to make sense. The SL class was never meant to be a daily driver. These were a weekend car for retirees in Florida, leading to many of them having super low mileage compared to the rest of the lineup. The majority that we saw had under 100,000 miles, which for a 20-year-old car is pretty darn good. Because of these, you're starting around $15,000 for a car with no major issues, but to get a good one, the one that you want, you're looking at 25 grand. Besides the typical ABC issues, watch out for the failures in the convertible top. The hydraulics are known to fail, which is kind of the same issue as the ABC, but again, we'll talk about that later. It can be just as expensive to fix as the suspension, so really, you just want to buy a good one. You just want to buy a clean example. It's hard to match the looks of these cars, though, when they're lowered on some nice wheels, and honestly, they look like they could have rolled off the production line 15 years later. They really do look pretty new. If you've got one, you've got to throw a set of wheels on them. You're not going to get a full set of wheels and tires packed in a Roadster, but if you order from our website, we'll mount them, we'll balance them, we'll ship them straight to your door, so you can just change them out in your driveway. And then your SL will go from looking like a grandma car to actually looking super, super sick. We have thousands and thousands of wheels on our website that fit your BENZ, so if you've got one, click the link down below and shop a set for yourself. Now, we're talking about the Matcha Pilates car, the G-Wagon. It's completely different from anything else that we're looking at today. It's an SUV or a truck, depending on how you want to phrase it, so it is the most spacious. It weighs a ton. However, it's still got that supercharged V8, which is why it's on our list. Now, forget air or hydraulic suspension. These are a body-on-frame design with solid axles. They are more like a Toyota Tacoma than any other Mercedes. And if you're not an SUV fan, you still have to admit that G-Wagons have a special presence that just commands respect, possibly because your favorite rapper or athlete or anyone literally has one in their driveway. The prices on these are going to be outside of the budget for most people shopping for an M113K car. They are cheap compared to what a new G-Wagon costs, but they still start at about 30 grand and only go up from there. That's okay though, considering that the G-Class is a completely different car. You're not going to the track with this. They're just super cool. Probably not what you're here for, but super cool. So now let's move on to the last one. Speaking of big baller, the CLK DTM AMG. This is the last vehicle that comes with the M113K. It is the CLK class, but basically every CLK 55 you'll find comes with an NA 5.4 V8. Only the CLK DTM comes with the supercharger, and there were 180 of them produced. So unless you're Jay Leno or you just hit the lottery, you are probably not buying one of these. Given the rarity, they are mostly found in museums. If you see one cruising around, it could be a replica, it could be going to a show, but no one is driving this to Wawa to pick up a coffee. Out of curiosity's sake, since I know many of you are going to ask, here are the specs on this one. They made 100 coupes and 80 cabriolets. It is a wide-body version of the CLK. It was never sold in the US. Factory coil and spring suspension, no ABC obviously. 3,854 pounds, and for the price, well, it's just more than you can afford, to be frank. Did the word replica pop out to you? There have been a number of M113K swaps into the CLK. The stock non-supercharged engine is pretty much the same in terms of dimensions, so technically it is fairly easy to fit. Now you heard me mention Airmatic, ABC, and coil through this video, and you're going, Jake, what the heck are you talking about? Considering the motor in these is rock solid, the suspension type is really the make or break on these cars. Airmatic, is it really that bad? Well, if you look through the forums from back in, 04, 08, when these cars were pretty new, you'll see a lot of complaints about the air suspension found on the E55 and CLS 55. There are a lot of people claiming that it's bound to fail and you should just go to coilovers. And while the former is true, we're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be afraid to fix and maintain the air system on these cars yourself. Broken down into its constituent parts, the Airmatic system is not too different from an aftermarket air suspension kit. You've got a compressor, you've got a tank, you've got air springs, the bags, you've got a valve block, a distribution block, and lines. It's an air system, and then you've got the brains of the operation, level sensors. You have a control module for those, and you have a damper control switch. Airmatic problems start to happen around the 100 to 130,000 mile range, so you might be buying one that's already had it done. Typically, you're dealing with a bad compressor, a bad valve block, or more commonly, a leaking bag. If all these problems came up at once, yeah, it's probably going to be pretty expensive. However, most of the time, repairing the airmatic is really not that bad. Usually it's going to be one component at a time, and you can just band-aid one and then drive it until something breaks and then fix another. The key is to properly diagnose the faulty part the first time though, rather than throwing the whole catalog at it. A lot of shops like to just go, oh, your airmatic is bad, and just replace the whole system. There are even aftermarket support for most airmatic components if you're trying to keep costs to a minimum. And while it might not be the sportiest suspension, it is more comfortable than any coilover setup. And after all, this is a luxury car, even though it is like 20 years old. Plus, you get the benefit of lowering via lowering links, and you can raise the car up slightly if you have to clear a steep driveway or similar. Airmatic is usually worth keeping, unlike the real boogeyman, the ABC, another BENZ collapsing. That actually stands for active body control, but the former is not untrue. It's an electronically controlled hydropneumatic dampening system, and yes, it is as complicated as it sounds. It's found on the S, the CL, and the SL class AMGs, and it seems like it is designed to fail, with problems starting as early as 60,000 miles. Make no mistake, when it works, it absolutely works. Original owners got to enjoy a silky smooth ride, like hitting bumps on the highway and having your drink in the cup holder barely make a ripple. As the first owner, you could have enjoyed this for like 5 years before the inevitable happened right as your warranty ran out. Common failures are fluid leaks, pump issues, accumulator or valve problems. These systems operate at 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of pneumatic pressure, meaning that when they fail, they really fail. A burst line will make a giant mess and render your car undrivable, as one corner will literally be sitting on the ground. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with every component in the system, but to give you a rough taste of it, each corner has a nitrogen-filled self-leveling accumulator, whatever the heck that is. They cost $400 each. Cheaper replacement parts are available, but the complexity makes this system super expensive to maintain. So what do you do if you want to buy one of these ABC equipped models? First, buy a car that has such low mileage that the ABC can't be a problem. We're talking about a car that's been in the garage since it was new. Another one is getting a car that's well maintained, it has receipts from major ABC work, or budget a coilover conversion or buy one that already has them. For a coilover conversion, are you just slapping on a set of coilovers? Well, that's what we thought before we put this video together, but unfortunately it is a little bit more difficult on ABC equipped cars. You can convert both air and hydraulic cars to coilovers, but ABC does come with extra challenges. The ABC system uses a tandem hydraulic pump to power both the suspension and, you guessed it, the power steering. You'll need to replace the pump with a normal power steering pump. ABC cars don't use sway bars. While optional, sway bars have been pretty standard for the past 50 years, so it kind of makes sense to just add them to the total conversion cost. They're not too expensive anyway. And finally, deleting all the ABC lines is just a ton of labor. For maximum weight savings, you do want to remove everything. The problem is that removing some of those lines is, frankly, almost impossible with the engine still in the car. The easiest way is to leave a few lines installed and remove what you can easily access. The major upside of coilovers is not having to worry about the ABC. At the same time, you can shed 100 to 200 pounds out of your already heavy Mercedes, depending on how much you're willing to delete. Coilovers are going to be a harsher ride, but also give you better driver feedback, and frankly, in a car like this, they ride just fine. We'd say they're perfect for an SL as it's more of a driver's car, while coilovers are kind of out of place on an S-Class unless you've got like a Slam VIP style look. So let's wrap it all up here. Besides suspension, what should you be looking for if you're in the market for an M113K powered car? They all have their unique issues. On an 03 E55, you want to make sure that the car has an updated radiator due to a recall, as they can get pretty darn toasty. For the S55, check every electrical system you possibly can for failures. This is a good idea on any old European car, but specifically this. And on the SL55, make sure the top works and works and works and works. Put it up, take it down, put it up, take it down. On all models, check for leaks, check for corrosion, do a compression test. You'll probably find hydraulic leaks on an ABC car. That's okay, because you should be budgeting for coilovers anyway. Do not buy one under the pretense that you're just going to keep the ABC. As far as value goes, the cheapest way currently to get a running M113K is with an S55 AMG. If you can do the coilover conversion yourself, you are looking at under 10 grand turnkey. However, it might be worth paying a little more up front. We expect that the CL and the SL will be more collectible in the future. A lot of W220 S-classes get parted out or just sent to the junkyard, and there's a reason for that. If you want to go as fast as possible, the most DIY-friendly car in the lineup, just go with the E55. The CLS is a great option too, but the E55 is kind of the cult classic here. It's the most likely to hold its value and is probably the one we would recommend that you buy. So regardless of which one you like, be sure to drop a comment down below if you have one or you want one or you don't like them. Hit the subscribe button if you like this video, hit the like button if you like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.